Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome to a brand new episode of What If Deku Travels Back in Time. Izuku really hadn't meant for it to turn it out like this. He hadn't. He doesn't even know how it turned out like this. But well, it had, and he didn't really have an option but to go with the flow and try for a second time. Or the alternate universe where Izuku accidentally travels back in time and creates chaos with every step he sets, but he still manages to keep it together. Kind of. If you guys enjoyed this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel. After watching this video, don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description box down below. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. On one cold winter day, Yagi stays longer than normal in the Midoriya household. Izuku-kun is already long gone, having been sent upstairs by Inko-san to go to sleep. Honestly, Izuku, it's already long past your bedtime and you'll be able to see him again next week. And Yagi has a mandatory free day, because some people are concerned of him overworking. Which basically means he can have a good night's sleep, no matter how late he actually comes home. And on top of that, Inko-san and him are talking about the recipes of the cakes of the Midoriya household, which are really good. Always. So, they're sitting at the table both with a cup of warm tea and Yagi with the last piece of cake when an ear-piercing scream echoes around the house. It's Izuku-kun's. Inko-san is up and running in a second, and Yagi not far behind. When they arrive in Izuku-kun's bedroom, the boy is laying in his bed. He's screaming and tossing around. Because it's winter, he normally uses double covers. He can't stand the cold, Yagi has learned, but one has been kicked to the floor and the other one is tangled up with his legs. He's sweating anyway. Inko-san has shot up to him the moment they come in, and is already shaking him away, surprisingly calm. Only half a minute later she's rewarded with open eyes overflowing with tears. She immediately pulls her hands off Izuku while Yagi looks on unsurely. When Izuku sees her at first he flinches away, however a moment later there are grabby hands and "I'm sorry. Please don't leave. Please, please. I'm so sorry. Please, dash." It takes 20 minutes for Izuku to truly calm down, and then another 15 for convincing him that Yagi didn't mind his nightmare, and he didn't think it was stupid. And really, the nightmare, or rather his screaming and crying, hadn't troubled or disturbed him. He comes to learn that these happen more often, which is how his mother knew what to do. You can't touch him immediately when he wakes up. He may mistake it as an attack, but hug him immediately when he starts crying. It calms him down. Pay attention to his signals though. Sometimes he will freak out instead of calm down if you hug him. And this was an especially bad one, because normally he doesn't scream loud enough to wake the entire house. With this explanation, he gets another hoarse apology from Izuku-kun for bothering them. He learns Inko-san is concerned about them, but she doesn't know what to do. They've already been to the doctor several times, and they don't know how to deal with them anymore either. He also learns Izuku-kun doesn't actually like talking about them, though he sometimes tells small parts in his panic, often unnerving. There's too much blood. I don't understand how there can be so much blood. A human body shouldn't have that much blood. The expression on Izuku's face when he said that had been heartbreaking and something Yagi is sure he will never be able to forget for the rest of his life. He's more reluctant about some things too, even subconsciously. He almost never mentions whose blood it is. He doesn't mention who was the one who made the one bleed. He does often accidentally make clear there is an instigator in his dream by mentioning an individual stabbing others and the like. Yagi is not sure if it's always the same one yet, but he doesn't like it one bit. He does however finally realize the origin of Izuku's ever-present eye bags and how it came to be that Izuku-kun sometimes says such morbid things with a straight face, albeit it's heartbreaking to think of a 4-year-old Izuku crying for hours after dreaming of them. The only positive thing that comes from that night is that they all become somewhat closer. Inko-san silently tells Yagi she's relieved afterwards because now she finally has someone who would be able to take care of Izuku-kun besides the Bakugas when she's away, or if something happens to her. This gives Yagi a really happy and fuzzy feeling inside dash. Izuku feels more confident when talking to him and has to filter his words less, and even invites him back in his bedroom again, which apparently, if he's to believe Inko-san, a huge sign of trust. Izuku has a surprisingly plain room, if it's not for the rows of books and 2 walls completely plastered with all kinds of posters of heroes. The biggest being one of All Might in the middle of the first wall. He knows that Izuku thinks highly of all heroes. It does, however, and he will deny this. Makes him grin for days when he learns that he, himself, was actually Izuku's favorite. It's cold and dark when Izuku, who had forgotten his jacket, is shivering and running home. He almost misses the scream in his haste to get home. The alley is even darker than the street behind him, and all he can see is dark shapes. He ignores the cluttered trash bags and old cardboard boxes laying around. He can hear what's happening as his eyes adjust and search for the culprit. There's a woman is screaming, but it's muffled. The sound comes from a figure half sitting, half laying against the walls that close the alley in. Another figure is bowing over the woman, hands roaming, and Izuku sees a flash of teeth reflect in the light coming from the street. There's yet another figure laying on the ground making muffled protests, who's held down by two others, one of them also roaming with their hands. One last figure is standing, most likely another one of the assaulters, looking ready to step in if one of the others need help, and probably on lookout too. He doesn't seem to notice Izuku. The first thing Izuku does is crouch behind some boxes and call the police. It feels awful, but Izuku is young and weak, and there's no way he can say for sure he will be able to help those two. It would be foolish of him to rush in only to become just another victim. His location and explanation to the man who picks up the phone is rushed and hushed. Then the woman screams again. Izuku abandons the telephone, and the urgent voice coming out of it as he begins to crawl. He sneaks closer under the cover of darkness and has hit the lookout's pressure point on the neck in less than a second. He instantly hides again behind some of the trash cans, peeking through a small opening. The figures stop and focus on their last member when a loud thump announces the falling down of them. Teiji? Fuck Teiji, what are you doing, man? Only silence is their answer, and the one crouching over the woman curses and hisses a command to one of the other to check on Teiji. The man grumbles, and hisses something of a warning to the figure laying on the ground. Again, Izuku sees something reflect in the light, but this time he realizes to his horror it's a short, sharp knife which if held in the man's hand. Izuku has no idea what he's supposed to do now. He rushed in with absolutely no plan, and some of the element of surprise is gone now. The figures are obviously more cautious now, not knowing how their companion landed on the ground. He feels emotions swell up in him and tears gather in his eyes. His body is betraying him, as it had done so often in the second life. No longer used to suppressing the violent emotions and keeping them inside. It had gotten better, but Izuku should have known that when he was thrust in such a situation with no warning the emotions would get the better of him. But no. There were two figures on the ground. They were being bothered by others. They were being groped, and that situation could worsen fast. He couldn't be selfish in his panic. He would help them, and in a flash, he softly opens his back and fumbles through the content. The steps were getting closer. A lighter. There is a lighter in his back and fingerprint powder, but he needs more. He hastily looks around him. There is a metal disc, which most likely had been some cover for a trash can or something. Furthermore, there were boxes and some other trash. His eyes zoom in on some well-weathered steel wool pads and a few old newspapers. He does the first thing he thinks of, grabbing his bag. He hurriedly throws the newspapers and wool pads in it. He hears the man start because of the sounds suddenly coming from his position, but then he has already grabbed the metal disc and gotten in position. He flicks it with all his might to the man who was approaching. The man still tries to avoid it, but he notices it too late. When it hits him full on the head, Izuku rushes out at the man. In the moment of shock of the other, his grip on his knife loosened and Izuku slaps at the hand, the knife falling out of it. He uses his momentum, jumps up. In the air, he grabs the head of the man with his two small hands and using his weight and all the power in his arms he bashes it into the ground. The second man crumbles. The other figures had frozen, looking at him like he was mad. A kid? In the time their hesitation and shock gives him, he gets the wool pads out of his open bag, throws the fingerprint powder over them. The men holding the others down look absolutely dumbfounded at his fumbling. He quickly scrabbles for his lighter and ignites the wool pads covered with fingerprint powder. And he hoped to God this would work. But the first one lights up and next second the wool pads were flying one for one to the figures still crouching over the woman and the one laying on the ground, all the while exploding in incredibly hot fire. The men curse and hastily get out of the way, but they both get hit anyway. The man who first crouched over the woman gets hit on his arm. The man lets out a surprised shout of pain, other hand flying to his arm, and looks at him with furious eyes. Shit, kid. No one ever told you not to play with fire? He growls. Izuku looked back with wide eyes. His shaking hands were folding the newspaper as many times as he could, making it denser and usable as a weapon. He notices one of the wool pads had set one of the other cardboard boxes on fire. He takes one step closer. The man growls and shakily stands up. Izuku takes another step, and another. Running again, his eyes flickering between the man's limbs and his face. He raises his arm, crouched in a way which would make him think he was going to jump. The man reacts to his bait. He tenses, his arms rising up to protect his upper half, and his knees bending into a more stable stance. Izuku feels his legs jump, feels his body fall, and kicks out his foot to the man's knee. There is a sickening crunch as Izuku finishes his roll behind the man and stands up again. The man falls on his other knee limply. Izuku strikes with the flat of his hand hard against the man's forehead, and then he uses the now dense newspaper and rams it as hard as he can with both hands against the man's temple, which is now at eye level. The third man crumbled. One left. The last one is ready though. With black hair and a tall stature, he's smirking down at Izuku. He's holding an already mostly burned out wool pad in his fingers. "Fuck, you brought my buddies down with ease. You're a pretty good kid." He looks at him interestedly, a bit searchingly. "But you're done now. I've got a temperature cancellation quirk. Fire won't work on me, no matter how hot." His eyes flicker orange cruelly in the light of the fire. "I'm pretty sure it will work on you though, with how fast you flung these away." And in a flash the man is in front of Izuku. Izuku tries to dodge out of the way, and he almost manages. But then he trips over the uneven cobblestones that form the ground of this alley. The man's arms are long, and he grabs him by his collar with ease. He heaves him of the ground, and Izuku tries to struggle, but his limbs are too short. The man just laughs at him. "Now let's teach you why little boys shouldn't play at being heroes." He brings up his hand with the still smoldering wool pad and Izuku freezes. His pain limit had always been pretty high, but again most of that had left him in this new life. Getting touched by smoldering steel was definitely not something he wanted to experience. His struggle begins again, this time even worse, and tears spring back into his eyes. Again, the man just laughs, pleased with his struggle. The metal touches his shoulder. It is burning through his shirt and it hurts. Izuku screams. It gets pressed harder, and harder, and it's hot, hot, hot. The water is too hot. It's boiling and Izuku can't get out. He's sobbing, and it isn't their fault. But it's so hot. Gah. The scream and a loud clang snap Izuku out of it. The pain is still there, but the source is gone, and Izuku falls on the ground as soon as the man's grip on him loosens. It takes Izuku a few blinks for the haze to clear up and look up. He's breathing hard, and his heartbeat thunders in his ears. He's gulping in air in an effort to calm down when he looks up with teary eyes and a shaking body at the woman who had been attacked, holding a long metal pipe in her hands, and the other man who had been the figure laying on the ground pulling his fist back to slam it into the head of the man who had been holding him up only seconds ago. The aftermath is wobbly for Izuku. He can finally see them clearly now, and the woman is somewhat tall and pretty, with long brown hair, freckles and soft brown, green eyes. The man is pretty too. He's just a little bit under average height and thin but looks surprisingly sturdy, which is probably why it took two men to hold him down. He also has brown hair, but whereas the woman has a light shade, he has a dark one. They both look rumbled. Their clothes are crunched up and torn at a few places. The woman is missing one of her high heels, and the heel has broken off of the one she's still wearing. The man had a whole sleeve torn off, was also missing one of his shoes, and he's favoring his right leg as the other one is hanging limply. It takes a minute for the three of them to gather themselves, and Izuku is the first one to do so. He stands up rashly, almost falling over again, and then bows over and apologizes for stepping in so late, going into a panicked rant that he called the police first, and he knew they were in trouble, and he's so sorry. This all while he's still crying from the pain and shaking from leftover shock. The man and woman are shocked in silence at first, but then interfere. No, the man says while crouches. It's alright. It was a good decision to call the police. I would even call interfering personally rather rash and brave. You're still a kid, after all. Izuku just shrugs nervously, and only slightly mollified. It's what anyone would have done. The woman crouches next to the man too, and hushes Izuku. She grabs her jacket, pulling it off, and throws it over Izuku's shoulder, which leaves him appalled because even though he's not sure anymore if he's shivering from the cold or the shock, the shirt of the woman is torn, and it's easy to see her chest, stomach, and brow. Izuku tries to give it back, but the woman shakes her head. The man with her offers her his own jacket to her, but that one is so torn that it still doesn't cover up much, certainly doesn't help with the cold. This time, he tries to trade. Sure, it's nothing to worry over. This jacket is plenty. The fight is over now, and because of your great decision to call the police, they will be here soon, right? Possibly even with a hero. Then they will be able to help us and give me a better jacket. Wouldn't that be nice? She smiles at him, and while Izuku feels slightly belittled, because he just got them out of that predicament, he wasn't hopeless, he doesn't need to be comforted, he also actually feels comforted. The woman is kind, soft-spoken and calm even with what happened to her only a few minutes back, and he takes comfort out of it. Izuku is not calm at all. He's quivering and upset. I'm Nakata Miyu, and this is Yoshinaga Jiro. What's your name? He doesn't understand how they're so calm. I'm Midoriya Izuku, it's nice meeting you. They chuckle weakly and the man comments not the ideal circumstances. I would say though. Izuku smiles shakily in answer. After that they buck up. The woman asks the man to look out for their attackers and make sure they were still unconscious while she and Izuku begin to look for their stuff. Izuku's, the woman's and the man's bag with their contents and Izuku's phone found later. They decide better safe than sorry and begin to move out of the alley, leaving the shoes behind. The man still keeps an eye out for the figures laying on the ground in the alley. The woman is on lookout for the police and Izuku is sitting on the ground leaning against the wall, exhausted, still a bit panicky and in pain, and completely ready to collapse. A few minutes later, the woman lets out a triumphant cry and the sounds of sirens register. Izuku falls asleep as bright red lights flicker and stressed agents jump out of the car. He is forced to have a checkup by the medics. The medic calmly talked to him with a soft voice and carefully sat him down. His hands got the first attention which he had burned and scraped, both got some kind of salve rubbed over them, and then bandaged up. Then the medic moved to the burn on the chest which was dealt with in the same way. He's given a small candy for sitting still, and then he is moved back to the same officer who had woken him up with a comment about him being in light shock. The officer gives a nod to the medic, and Izuku feels vaguely offended they're talking like he isn't standing between them. He's hustled together with Nakata-dan and Yoshinaga-san in a police car. They all get a shock blanket, which is nice. Then they're on their way to the police station. Nakata-san has gotten a new jacket, and they both seem a little bit more relaxed. When they arrive at the police station, they are all again hustled inside, and to a room where they get left alone. Someone comes by and asks them if they want something to drink, and Izuku gratefully asks for some tea. The officer with the green skin tone then comes back again. He asks for their names, and tells Izuku they are going to call his mother. He asks Nakata-san and Yoshinaga-san if they want to call someone, and Nakata-san moves to the corridor to call the friends they were supposed to meet up, and give them a short summary. Izuku's mom gets called by the officer, and asked if she would please come to the police station. In a record time, his mom has turned up in a worried crying frenzy, and Izuku has never been so happy to see his mom again. The moment she steps inside the room, Izuku jumps on her, hides his face in her stomach, and decides he will never let go again and he will hide there forever. Which sets his mother off in another frenzy, and it takes a while for the police officer to calm her down. When she has calmed down significantly, and they have all been sat down, his mother with a glass of water and tissues, Yoshinaga-san explains what happened to them, and how Izuku had interfered and taken 3 of the men out, though he wasn't exactly sure how, as he had been forced to the ground for most of the fight. Izuku feels his mom tense under him, and which makes him feel even worse as he's obviously worrying her. The officer nods and writes it down. He tells to Yoshinaga-san that he will have to ask Nakata-san about the happenings too, and that there will be a medic in a few minutes to check up on his leg, and possibly take him to the hospital. Then hesitantly he turns to Izuku. Izuku determinedly ignores that though, and stays happily with his face buried into his mom's sweater. His mom however notices this too, and her hand which rested on his back pulls softly at the jacket of Nakata-san. Izuku? Machida-san wants to ask you something. I don't wanna. There's a pout in his voice and his hands tighten in his mom's sweater. After some coaxing, with mainly involved getting his tea, he finally faces the officer again. He asks him what happened, and Izuku tells about him running home and hearing a scream. Tells him about going into the alley and then calling the police. But then when the woman screamed he couldn't stay still and do nothing. Machida-san laughs weakly at that and tells Izuku he had given the emergency call receiver who was on the phone with him a heart attack when he suddenly didn't answer anymore. Izuku continues his story with how he had taken out the first man with a blow to his pressure point on his neck, which he was aware of because of his martial arts. How he then had hit again and thrown the disc to the man's head and taken him down using his confusion, He explains using his fingerprint powder and the steel wool pads to make mini bombs and throwing the at the two left. How he then had managed to take one of them down with martial arts. Lastly, he explains about the last man with a temperature cancellation quirk who had caught him and burned him, but that Nakata-san and Yashinagi-san had interfered and had taken him down too. He tries to make it less scary than it was for his mom, but with how tense and the several tissues that disappear, he thinks he failed. The police officer calls him brave at the end of the story, but tells him that he should have waited for the police. Izuku tells him a lot more rebellious than normally that there would have been a chance that it would have been too late already by then crumbles guiltily and tells his mom he's sorry for worrying her. His mom smiles weakly at him and tells him, Izuku, I know you want to be a hero, but leave to the police and the heroes for now. You're only 9. Izuku tells her again he's sorry, but also tells her he couldn't just leave it alone. This is the first time this happens. The first time in this life he defends someone not just from bullies, but from actual criminals. He does it in a filthy, stupid alley, and in the end, he needs to be saved by the victim themselves. But the victims are thankful. When they say goodbye to him that evening, there are tears in their eyes and they both give him an affectionate hug, telling him to come visit them sometime. When he's home, he has at least a dozen nightmares of the encounter. The face of the man burning him changing and his voice warping, until he's an entirely different person. He hyperventilates once, throwing up in the toilet before he can calm down. He thanks God that his mom is on a grocery run when that happens. He meets the couple again the same week, the last time for their report against the attackers. They give him home-mode cookies and their telephone number. They talk with his mother, telling her she has raised a gem, giving her their number for if they ever need a favor of some kind, and set up a date with her to meet again. Their smiles are bright and happy. They make it worth it. It's what he tells himself when it kind of spirals down from there. Izuku gets a sudden special talent for finding others in need other than victims of bullies. Most times small things, people being lost, people having lost something or someone, people in need of a small patch-up because of a nasty fall, or even just helping getting a cat out of the tree. He now always brings a first aid kit with him everywhere he goes. Something bigger things, the time he sees someone crying over a torn open body of someone else on the ground a month later with another grinning manically down at them. Or when a blood-soaked man stumbles out a side street. Or when someone screams for help around the corner. He now has the number of the police on his speed dial. He gains something of a name at the police bureau and the neighborhoods near where he lives. With especially bad cases where the police needs to be called, he first worries about the legalities. The word vigilante falls. But everything he does is in defense of others and legal. He's a kid and he doesn't have a quirk, which apparently makes him immune to more than half of all the laws. The police officers give him concerned frowns, but accept that they can't do anything because it isn't like Izuku does this on purpose. He honestly does come across the cases on accident. And when he does, well, he can't just leave them alone. They tell him to be careful, and next time wait for the police anyway. He still freaks out with most of those bad cases, and an officer named Tamakawa Sansa, who was highly involved in his second incident, and who you can mainly recognize because he has a head of a cat, gets in the habit of calming him down after Izuku almost has a breakdown in the middle of the police station after a particular bad almost backstabbing in another alley. It isn't exactly ideal. Izuku gets even worse bags under his eyes. His mom is concerned, and the police officers are too. He gets lectures, to which he will always say the same thing. But I couldn't just leave them alone. They needed help. And then they always sigh and try to convince him to wait for the police the next time again. Just because they need help doesn't mean a 9-year-old boy should offer himself up with the possibility of getting hurt. You should leave it to the adults. A kid shouldn't have to deal with these things. Izuku, please stop this. I will ground you. You can't go on like this. He tries at once. The woman gets stabbed and the police find Izuku sobbing with 2 bodies on the ground. He's trying to stop the blood, prevent too much blood loss. Izuku has a full-blown panic attack after that, and when the officers try to convince him afterwards when he has calmed down again to wait for the police, and that this was worst-case scenario, they sound resigned. Tamawaka-san tells him as long as you continue to call the police first, before you interfere, and organizes a self-protection lesson plan together with several other officers. He forces Izuku to come to the police station to take one of the lessons every week with one of the officers. He also gives him several books he has to read on self-protection and a special Izuku kit, which is a completely normal leather handbag on the surface but contains several pepper sprays, a taser, a stun gun, a small first aid kit, A pocket knife, a lighter, a bottle of water, some substances, and a kind of emergency whistle. He urgently tells him he should carry it with him everywhere, and Izuku looks at the bag in disbelief. Sadly, Sansa notices the look and notifies his mother that Izuku has to take the stupid bag with him everywhere, with everything in it. His mom is overjoyed with the safety measures, and from that day on Izuku is not able to leave the house without his mother calling a frenzied Izuku. Do you have your safety handbag? It's incredibly annoying to walk to school with 2 bags, but even Izuku can't deny the practically when the next assaulter he comes by is down in less than a minute via his pepper spray, and Izuku doesn't even freak out. He gives Tamawaka-san a grumpy thank you when he is there to pick up the unconscious body. "Ah, Izuku, I bought something for you." The excited voice came from his mother. Izuku looks curiously at his mother. "You bought something for me?" She nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, come look at it." Izuku moved to his mother. He blinked in surprise at the 2 big packages on their table. The right one read "The Ultimate Kit for Becoming a Police Officer" in bold blue letters, and the left one read "How to Be a Detective" in bright yellow cursive letters, with under the title standing "The Master Detective Toolkit." "Isn't it exciting?" his mom exclaimed, while beaming at him brightly. There was a slight nervous hint in it though. Izuku sighed. "Mom, I know you don't like me wanting to become a hero, because you don't think it's too dangerous for a quirkless person. But this is going a bit far, don't you think?" His mother froze. "Aha, Izuku, what are you talking about? I just thought they looked like something fun for you." Izuku deadpanned. "Mom, I'm 6. Not an idiot. I can connect the dots." She deflated. "Mew, Izuku, at least give it a try. I know you want to be a hero very badly, but you've to consider that it is very dangerous, even when you're not quirkless. I can't in good conscience just let you throw yourself into this without letting you see other options. And I wouldn't have bought it if I didn't honestly think you would find this exciting. You're always so enthusiastic with helping people and mysteries. You should give it a chance." Izuku looked at his mom for a few seconds, then he sighed too. "Of course, Mom, I will try it." Most of the stuff in the kits was lame, made for children and of questionably quality. But Izuku had to admit some stuff was really cool as he looked at the fingerprint powder, the fancy compass, the mini first aid kit, the strong 2 big leather gloves, the police belt with like 1,000 pockets, and the big rectangular lighter with wide, excited eyes. He wasn't exactly sure how these had ended up in a kit for children, but he certainly didn't mind. Shunji Machida looked with wide eyes at the small, shy boy in front of him taking on 3 newbie police officers at the same time, and taking them down. He wasn't kidding when he told us he was good at martial arts. He breathed that to Sansa next to him. Sansa nodded with equally wide eyes next to him. "I saw him, when I met him for the first time, but I didn't expect him to be so good. We still have to give him self-protection lessons." His voice sounded rather weak. The boy looked at them with big eyes, the agents who fought him having just left the room painstakingly. "Okay, since you've got the whole, Sansa gestured with his hand in a vague manner, martial arts thing down. "We will start with how to best use several self-protection devices. After that we'll begin with some standard self-protection moves, and we'll see how much of those you already know." Machida nodded sagely next to him. "Do you think it's a good idea to give a 9-year-old a pepper spray, let alone a stun gun, and teach him how to use them?" Sansa gave him a dead-eyed look. "We have no other options, Machida." Machida looked concernedly at Midoriya-kun, who was fiddling with the pepper spray nervously. "He looks like he will pepper spray someone on accident the moment something surprises him." "We have no other options," Sansa repeated, looking just as concerned. Midoriya-kun looked up to him, his confusion making him forget his reluctance momentarily. "That's not right, Tamakawa-san. In reaction to such movements it would be the best to move to the right, and use his momentum, and your own to flip him over." Sansa sighed. No, you're thinking too hard, and your moves are too fancy and mild. The only thing you want to do here is take your opponent down. Your safety is priority. You said you trained in pressure points, right? It's like that, you need to use their weaknesses to full capacity. When your opponent is using those movements, they're aiming to take you down too, so it would be the best to go for their elbow, and push it up, then use their momentum in your fist and slam it in their stomach, or giving an uppercut. Those waste the least energy, and give you a nice opportunity to follow up in other movements. Maximum damage ability you can get, But won't that get me too close to the opponent? Sansa frowned. Yes, it will. But that is only bad if they have a quirk which can be used to their benefit in close range. Of course, you can use you being up close as a way to overwhelm your opponent, and if you punched him right he won't react immediately anyway. But he raised his hand to his chin thoughtfully. Machida raised his eyebrow to the boy from his place next to Sansa. You have good judgment, don't you, Midoriya-kun? You will be able to read the person you're fighting, I think. Also, you won't jump in recklessly. I think you would recognize which opponents you can get close to and which not. Every opponent is different, you know that. So every opponent needs to be fought differently. Some you should fight with recklessness, and some with absolute caution. Some you must tire out, and some you need to take out as fast as you can. You also know this and follow through with this. You strategize well, but while you're very able to take down persons, you're being too mild, worrying too much about your opponent and not worrying enough about yourself and the energy you spent while taking him down, and the other consequences of the movements you use sometimes. You're only a quirkless kid. You don't have a lot to work with. So, ending the fight as fast as possible is the best option you have, always. You can't afford to hold back, the boy frowned. So, I need to be more careful with myself. Take opponents down as fast as I can, should consider the moves I dashed. The boy trailed off in unclear mumbling. Machida smiled fondly at the boy, exchanging a smile with Sansa next to him. Midoriya-kun really was a small little wonder, and while his mumbling took some time getting used to, it was rather cute. Then Sansa's expression twisted in a thunderous one. He raised his arm and slapped Machida over his head. Hey, don't tell the boy to fight his opponents recklessly. Midoriya Izuku, you are reporting to me right now. The loud, harsh voice interrupted his stuttering talk with Machida-san, and Izuku almost dropped his donut. Machida-san, the jolly green-skinned police officer Izuku had met in his first case, looked at him in disbelief. What have you done now? Izuku, who had been busy looking in terror at the hurricane that was angrily waving a folder to him and storming up to them. I don't know. I've had that stupid bag on me the whole month. No cheating, and that stupid bag, huh? Was growled by the hurricane going by the name of Tamakawa-san, who was only a few feet distance from them now. Izuku's eyes widen. He opens his mouth, probably to apologize, but Tamakawa-san is first. That bag must have helped you with the 3 cases this month, huh? 1 month, Midoriya-kun. 1 month. You're coming with me right now, while I'm going to talk to your mother. You're calling my mother? Izuku looked like a deer in the headlights. One of those 3 wasn't even me on my own. I was with Machida-san. Machida-san froze while Tamakawa-san turned to him with demonic eyes, suddenly calm. Ah? That's right, I read that in the report too. Machida-san, what did I say about giving the wrong example? Now wait a second, Sansa. That man tried to rob the handbag of a lady. I couldn't just let him get away it. I didn't know we would end up in the middle of a gang meeting. I would never have let the boy follow otherwise. Machida-san shot a suspicious look at a nervous Izuku. I would probably never have even ended up in that situation. How do you get in trouble so quickly? We were going on a grocery run. How do you even bump into a pedestrian so badly? You end up in a gang meeting? He mumbles grumpily. Sansa, however, seems to ignore his pleads, slapping him over his head. Oh, hey, stop it. I can't believe you. You're being way too happy-go-lucky. Tamakawa-san tells Machida-san angrily, as he grabs him by his ear. Oh no, not my ear. Izuku feels the laughter bubbling up at the comical scene of Machida-san being dragged around by his ear and scolded by Tamakawa-san. Again, Izuku had easily noticed that the 2 officers who took most care of him clashed often, especially when Machida-san did something careless, and Tamawaka-san would get annoyed with it. It was kind of like Kachan and Kirishima in his last life, but very different at the same time. It felt familiar and comforting, small giggles escaping his lips. If he wouldn't have closed his eyes while giggling and would have looked, he would have seen the softening of the eyes of both the officers, and the soft smiles they both gained. They didn't see the timid boy smiling that often, even after knowing him for several months now, and while his mother had told them he was already smiling a lot more now. It was a joy to see him laugh. As it was, he only noticed Tamakawa-san's angry voice after Tamakawa-sansa had snapped out of it. Don't think you're off the hook too, young man. The first time Yagi meets Bakuga Mitsuki, he is, reasonably intimidated. Izuku-kun is apparently still out playing with his friend Bakuga-kun, and Yagi arrives as Inko-san and Bakuga-san are excitedly talking to each other. Bakuga-san, or Mitsuki-san as she immediately demands, is a force, certainly. She had apparently appointed herself as guardian of the Midoriya household. Because, damn it, Inko and Izuku-chan are way too trusting of creepy strangers. They should both know by now you shouldn't do that. It's common sense, Yagi secretly agrees, but she's also kind, and as Yagi learns when she has, partly, approved of him, while she's kind of rough around the edges, most of her violent behavior is in response of her son. Yagi doesn't really know how to feel about that. He has met Bakugakuin after all, or feeling protective of others. She takes the protection of the Midoriyas seriously and tries to take care of them as much as she can in the hours she's there. She tells Inko-san she works too hard, and tangles her in a conversation while sitting her down with tea and cookies. Mitsuki-san talks about her idiot son, who's been out of line again this week while she's bustling around in the kitchen. And he's becoming more and more insolent. Honestly, he even called her a hag last Thursday. For the first time in the time Yagi has known her, Inko-san leaves the serving to another than Izuku or herself, and just relaxes while talking and laughing. Cheekily answering that Katsuki-kun has been calling Mitsuki-chan a hag for years already. An hour later when Bakuga-kun and Izuku-kun finally arrive, Yagi has gained a healthy respect for Mitsuki-san and the things she can make Inko-san do. Honestly, Yagi-san, you should invest in some more form-fitting clothes. It would look great on you. And it's not like you don't have the money. Everything you wear is such high quality. It's a shame to not at least buy them to fit you. And now we're talking about that anyway. What is it you actually do for your job? Do you travel overseas? Because you speak English sometimes, I mean. Also, with that clothing quality and the expensive restaurant you took us to last month, I would imagine it's something that pays a lot. You don't overwork too much, do you? You should look out for your health. Don't think I didn't see you lagging earlier. I've Izuku as my son. Those things don't escape my notice. Izuku looked in amusement as his mom's worried rambling made Yagi-san slowly shrink into himself. They were sitting in the kitchen, at least Izuku and Yagi-san were sitting. His mom was busy with several pots and pans in front of the stove, preparing dinner, all the while interrogating Yagi-san. Again. Really, Yagi-san should be used to it by now. No, Inko-san, please don't worry. I'm able to handle the workload. So you admit you've got a big workload? Yagi-san winced. It's a reasonable workload. There was a small pause, and Yagi-san's eyes flickered between them. I actually work in the hero business. Oh? You do? That's amazing. Do you work at an agency? Maybe as a manager, or someone else behind the screens? Yes, sort of. Izuku's sweat dropped at the hesitating, awkward mutter, but his mom seemed to be oblivious. That's so exciting. You should talk with Izuku about heroes sometimes. Izuku knows a lot. Maybe you can tell him about some personal experiences. I'm sure Izuku would love that. Izuku's mom looked at him, and he nodded. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Yes, of course. You're a fan of them, right? Do you have a favorite? Maybe Best Jeanist or Endeavor. Izuku frowned at him, and his mom let out a laugh. Yagi-san blinked at them. Not Endeavor then? His mom moved to the table and ruffled his hair. No, Izuku doesn't like him. It goes way back to when he only was a baby. Once, when he was 3 I think, I tried to give him one of those action figures, of Endeavor. But Izuku threw a huge tantrum. He has a poster of every hero in his home, but Endeavor. Even now he gets grumpy with every mention of him, as you can see. She rubbed his hair again, and Izuku let out a protest. I've never understood it, but Izuku says Endeavor just gives of this bad feeling, and well, Izuku has always had pretty good instincts with people. Though I can't imagine why the number 2 hero should give of a bad feeling. Yagi-san blinks at him with searching eyes, and Izuku grumbles. Just because someone is a hero, doesn't mean they're a good person, Mom. Naomasa, what are you doing here? I thought you were reassigned in Hosu. The detective blinks surprised at the police officer approaching. Hello Sansa-san. I actually got transferred back again, at least temporarily. I've got a close friend who I'm concerned for here. He's probably going to leave the city soon, so this is my last chance to see him often. He should be here to pick me up soon actually. The detective smiles, turns back to the bureau, gives a wave to the assistant and walks to Sansa with several folders in his hands. How are you though? I heard you've picked up a new partner in the months I've been away. And also, something about you two having a kid? One of his eyebrows slowly inches up as he says that. Sansa's eyes widen. Who told you that? Naomasa gives him a judging expression and Sansa laughs uncomfortably, his arm moving up to scratch his neck. Okay, you may remember Machida-san? Naomasa hums. You mean that younger officer you would always rant about because he says things without thinking? Yes. That's the one. Well, circumstances forced us together, and I found out he may have not been as bad as I thought. Chief noticed we work pretty well as a team, and Masumi-san, you know, my previous partner got transferred too, so we're partners for now. Okay. And what about the kid? Naomasa looks at him as he opens the door to the lobby. That's a longer story. Sansa answers hesitantly. I figured. Well, spill. Okay, so there's been this kid, Midoriya Izuku, and he got involved in a few incidents. He has this weird talent to come across trouble, and unfortunately this included various serious assaults. Sansa, where have you been? I've been looking for you everywhere? Naomasa jumps in shock from the sudden loud exclamation, but Sansa just groans. He turns around and hisses to the man approaching. Quiet, idiot. You're talking too loud. The green-skinned man, feeling the possible storm coming, hastily holds up his arm, as Naomasa looks on curiously, and continues in a much softer voice. Sorry, didn't mean to. Just, Chief has asked us to take up a new case. He raises his hand with a folder in it a little more and waves it to him. Then grinning he exclaims also, I got us donuts. The good ones with the chocolate taste. Sansa sighs. You know. It's because of people like you that the stereotype of donuts-loving police officers exists. The green-skinned man shrugs with a grin. So anyway, who's your friend? He sends a curious look at the dark-haired man. Oh, I'm sorry. Tsukachi Naomasa meet Machida Shunji and vice versa. Machida is my new partner you heard about, Naomasa. And Naomasa here is an old colleague who is going to work here again. Really? Nice. It's a pleasure to meet you. Likewise, Naomasa responds calmly. His eyes take on a mischievous shine, however, when he continues. Sansa-san was just telling me about your child. Machida splutters. You too? You've been here for how long? I can't believe you people. You say it in a way to misleading way. Then he turns upset to Sansa. I thought you were against it too? Sansa groans. Others have informed him before I could interfere. It was already too late. Machida takes on a gloomy look. So, what did you tell him? I was just telling him about the trouble Midoriya-kun always gets in. Machida immediately switches from gloomy to exasperated. That boy is going to be the death of me. Last week I followed him everywhere. He got into 2 bully incidents, almost fell out of a tree while trying to help a cat, stopped someone else from beating a dog, and somehow came across a man who had fallen out of his window and had broken his leg. There's no way all that happens in 1 week. It's just too much. Sansa blinks at him. I don't know if I should be disturbed by the fact you followed him, or all the incidents. What? Machida replied indignantly. I was trying to find the reason he comes across so much incidents. Chief gave me permission. To make sure we know what we should be cautious for and where we should search for crime and injustice, so that we can guard and protect the city with our all, he said. Sansa nodded with a patient, calm expression on his face. You bullshitted to the chief, didn't you? Gave some weird speech again to get permission. Chief is weak for those. Sansa states more than asks. No way. Why his protests get ignored though? But actually, that could be a good idea, you know? To get Midoriya-kun some bodyguards or something. God knows, we will all gain less wrinkles that way. Sansa-san interrupts. Midoriya-kun would never agree though. We could ask his mom. Midoriya-kun is unable to not listen to her, or get mad even. Machida nods, contemplating. You know, I think that may actually work. Midoriya-kun's is a total mama's boy. His mom would be overjoyed, and I'm sure Chief will agree. It's for the safety of a citizen after all, and he secretly adores Midoriya-kun. I heard he is already rooting for Midoriya-kun to become a police officer. And if he doesn't agree just on principle, we can even just say it's training for the newbies or something. Naomasa looked at them in disbelief. I think I understand why they're calling him your kid. The poor parents of that child better look out. They whip to him with a disbelieving, insulted expression, and Naomasa chuckles. Sansa opens his mouth for a very indignant answer but gets interrupted by a scrawny blonde man, with clothes at least 3 sizes too big, walking to them. Naomasa, there you are. Are you ready to go? Naomasa turns around surprised. Oh, Yagi-san. I am. Give me a few seconds. He turns back to Sansa and his partner. I'm sorry to cut our reunion short, but as you can see, I've to go. It was a pleasure to meet you, Machida-san, and of course, to see you again, Sansa-san. I'll be back again Thursday, so maybe I can talk to you again then. Perhaps even meet your kid. And he walks to the blonde man with an amused grin on his face, while he leaves the 2 officers spluttering. They're sitting in the kitchen again. It had been a calm evening until now, ordinary but nice. Izuku had come home on time, nothing particular having happened to him today. He and his mom had gone to the police station after school, where his mom had had a long talk with Sansa-san and the chief. From what Izuku had managed to catch, they had been talking about possible therapy and possible bodyguards. Which was ridiculous. Honestly. Izuku didn't want to bother anyone with his problems any more than he already did, and he had been fine for so long already. But his mom had seemed happy when they left, so Izuku would let it go for now. It was a Yagi Sunday, so when they got home, his mom, still happy from earlier, had immediately started preparing dinner with Izuku helping on the side. Yagi-san had been received enthusiastically as always, and there they were. It was weird though. It was weird because Mom's and Yagi-san's moods were clashing. Both were subtle, but it was easy for Izuku to see the content air around his mom, so content that she was obvious to Yagi-san's anxious, disturbed air. Izuku wasn't obvious. Izuku had been waiting for an explanation the entire time Yagi-san had been there, looking at him with questioning eyes. Yagi-san was looking at his food, however, moving the rice around, avoiding his eyes. He scraped his throat. "I'm going to leave soon." His mom looked up surprised. "What did you say, Yagi-san?" I'm going to leave soon. The city, I mean. My job demands for me to move. So I'll be unable to see you as often as now." His tone was strained, like a rubber band about to snap. "You're going to leave?" His mom's voice sounds a little bit hollow, Izuku thinks. It reminds him of no, he shouldn't think about that now. Not yet. In about 3 months. "I wish I could stay, but I've no choice." "I'm sorry." Yagi-san looks like a pained puppy even with his efforts to act normal. The silence that falls is unpleasant. Izuku wants to reassure him, say that it wasn't his fault, but it feels a little bit unreal. Yagi-san had been with them for around 2 years now, always visiting weekly. No exceptions. He was family now, really. He knows his mom feels the same. Even the Bakugas had started to actually accept him, though he should have known. Albeit it's harder for Izuku to see them as the same person now. Distantly, Yagi-san is still All Might, and when he had actually met All Might in his last live, All Might had been almost new to the city, knowing only the main infrastructure of it, and even getting lost sometimes. Izuku freezes when he realizes he and his mom were probably one of the instigators of All Might being in this city for so long, too long probably. His thought process gets cut off by Yagi-san, who speaks up again in the silence. "I would still like to keep contact, via talking over the phone or something, and I would be able to visit sometimes." "Maybe." Then Izuku manages to find his voice somewhere. "Where are you going then?" Information gathering was easy to fall back on. Analyze and judge. Yagi-san blinks at him, surprised it's not really clear. "I'm going to have to travel a lot. I'm sure some of the locations will be close, so I will be able to visit, but well." Izuku nods. He looks at his mom, who still looks a little bit lost. "But we'll still keep contact? You will still call us, at least once a week? If you are okay with that, I would really like that." Yagi-san is fiddling. "And for how long are you leaving?" "I'm not sure. Are you coming back?" "I don't know. And we still have 3 months?" "Yes, we have." Izuku looks at his mom, who is looking at him too, unsure but better now. She nods at him. Then his eyes glide to Yagi-san, who's still fiddling, looking down to his hands. "Well, I think we're able to deal with that. If you're sure to call us at least every week." He makes sure to emphasize the every week part because Izuku isn't at all that sure if he's actually alright with this. But his adults need a rock, and Izuku has never had any problem with sacrificing himself. "But you're going to have to visit us these 3 months at least twice a week, and we're helping you pack. Also, when you come to visit, you better have some nice souvenirs and stories." Izuku totally ignores Yagi-san perking up looking at him with wide eyes, and his mom grinning amusedly. "I agree with Izuku. You better call us weekly, otherwise we'll come search you." His mom giggles softly, teasingly continuing. "Someone has to make sure that you take care of yourself. Maybe you can finally buy some form-fitting clothes." Yagi-san smiles at them exited. "Of course, I'll make sure I will call every week, no matter what happens." The images flash before his eyes. There's blood. Tears. Sweat. Broken smiles. He has seen this before. A distressed child. A desperate mother who will do anything. Someone is talking to him. He thinks it's to calm him down. He looks at the orange blob in a haze. He recognizes it, though he isn't sure whereof. A hand reaches to his face, and he feels himself flinch away. Hands were dangerous, and all he can remember is explosions too close and crumbling skin and hopes. The hand immediately retracts. A worried voice calls out something, but Izuku barely understands what it means. "Machida, he isn't calming down. We need to call his mother." "Can't." His mother is on a trip for her work. She wouldn't come home after at least 11 p.m., remember? The voice sounds anxious. Well, she put up another number for us to call when she wasn't reachable. 2 even. Call one of them. Oh, right. There's a rush when one of the blobs move and more mumbling. Midoriya-kun. Midoriya. Please calm down. It's okay now. It's okay now. You know why? Because I'm here. That were his last words before he ended up in the hospital, and nothing would be ever alright again. We're calling Toshinori Yagi, okay? He'll be here soon too. Toshinori Yagi. Izuku had never been sure if he had liked that name on his grave. He probably should be, because the villains had trashed all the other known hero graves. He couldn't shake the feeling though that there laid a man in that grave who had done so much. But every passing stranger would just see an unknown name, unimportant in the sea of grey stones. The man would never receive what he deserved. Not even in death. It's not helping. He isn't even reacting. I think he's dissociating. How long did Toshinori-san say he would take? He said he's on his way. 5 minutes tops. They were too late. They were always too fucking late, and Izuku couldn't take it anymore. Lita was smiling at him, trying to comfort him probably, but all Izuku could recognize was how fake it was. It reminded him of Ida after his brother was attacked. He didn't feel comforted. Kachan was raging. Izuku couldn't blame him. This was the second person they had murdered, destroyed, wrecked. Though it wouldn't be because of the second person that Kachan was going rampant. Kachan would never be able to forgive the murderers for their first. He doesn't think he'll ever forget the time Kachan raged out in grief, eyes full of pain, hate and anger, when he heard of his father's dead. He clenches his fist. He hears a crack and a shatter. He looks in surprise at his hands. They're wet. Tea, he recognizes. Shards litter the ground in his hands. Blood welling up. Shit. Midoriya. I need you to focus. The voice gets ignored. He moves his hand in front of him. Slowly, staring to it in fascination like it's an art piece which he is studying. Like he has just learned he can move each individual finger. He flicks his index finger. There's a loud crack. A scream and curses. Wow, what the fuck? Oh my god, Sansa. Are you alright? There's some stumbling. Izuku ignores it as he looks at the cracks littering the ground following the path of his finger flick. The pile of ruin where first stood a desk, and the hole in the wall across from him. What the fuck was that? A fucking wind wave? I thought Midoriya didn't have a quirk. Sansa, oh my god, there's a fucking pen stuck in your arm. I noticed. The person sounds pained in his sarcasm. I'm fine though. I'm fine, Izuku. Don't worry about little old me. The doctors will take care of me. Her voice sounds weak and her smile is pained. More importantly, we have to stop Midoriya from doing it again. Did Midoriya get influenced by some other quirks? Izuku flicks another finger. This one is bleeding. There is a shockwave as rubble flies around. Crashes. Curses. Hurried footsteps. Smoke. Fire. The rubble is all that's left. No one is capable of surviving a fire like that. You don't know that. She's sobbing. Izuku-kun. He recognizes that voice. He looks up at the blurry and dim shapes. The yellow, blonde hair surprises him. He can't help but feel like a smile should be there on a face where the only thing he can find is a worried frown. There's someone speaking to the blonde, warning him, but the man just ignores them. Izuku-kun, can you hear me? He can. He stares at the man, trying to keep focus. Can I come closer? The man looks at him unsurely, but calmly. Izuku looks at him for a little bit longer, then he nods. The man steps closer and crouches before him. "Sie, can I hug you?" Izuku feels his brow crinkle. Hug. An act of comfort. Was he in need of comfort? Izuku likes hugs though. He spreads his arms. The man smiles. Pained but soft. He reaches with long, thin arms and engulfs him whole. His white shirt is soft under his hands, and Izuku buries his face in it. His nose gets assaulted by a familiar, comforting smell. All might. Yagi-san. Safe. He snaps out of it. Tears and snot begins to dribble. Sobs begin to shudder through his frame. His lungs become more desperate for air. And all the while Yagi-san is mumbling comfort, shushing and drawing circles on his back. "It's alright, my boy, just go to sleep. I'll take care of anything for now." Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today. I hope you enjoyed exploring the fascinating what-if scenario of Deku. The possibilities were truly mind-blowing. If you found this video entertaining and thought-provoking, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to me and inspires me to bring you more captivating content in the future. Stay tuned for more exciting what if stories and other amazing videos coming your way. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep embracing the power of imagination.